Hi everyone, it's Victor speaking, and I'm here today with Leslie, and then we're going to be making a video on Saturn entering Aquarius, which just happened on the 22nd. But firstly, let me apologize for looking like a grizzly bear, but we are in lockdown. I don't really want to go outside, and there is no way I can shave this off with a normal razor, so I look like the way I look. But anyway, we brought you some interesting information of what Saturn in Aquarius might bring for us in the next 3 years. So Leslie, again, is a student of mine, and I think she has got very great insight, and she is here today with me to share it. If you like the video, don't hesitate to press like, and also subscribe to the channel so you can get more information from us. How are you doing, Leslie?
I'm doing well, Victor. The appearance thing, I'm seeing like a lot of pictures of what we're all going to look like when we come out of this hibernation mode. And everyone is just going to be looking a little disheveled. So it's okay. We're practicing the social distancing, which is super appropriate for Saturn and Aquarius, because Aquarius is kind of like a reserved, distant sign. And Saturn brings those restrictions upon us. It sets up these boundaries, these hard boundaries that, we cannot cross, until we really understand what's going on. I find your appearance very appropriate for these times.
Saturn is the planet of getting old, and actually it rules anything in regards to hair and nails and so forth. And I find it very funny that people are saying that, oh, we're not gonna recognize each other on the street because you've got longer hair, long nails, no makeup, and so forth. And apart from the makeup, these are pretty much by Saturn. So we're going to look like a wreck by the end of this period. But let's hope it's worth it, because Aquarius also talks about humanitarian energies.
Yes.
So let's hope it brings people together.
Definitely.
And we're going to start a completely new era.
Yes.
So how do you feel about Saturn entering Aquarius?
Well, just like you said, Aquarius is the sign of humanitarianism. It's about the collective. It's about just communities, organizations. So Saturn coming in here may bring some reform. It actually may bring us together, like discipline us to come together for a cause, for a goal, for a reason. And especially during these times, that we're all kind of in lockdown mode, it's a good time to really figure that out, figure out what your internal, your individual cause is. Because I can definitely, tell already I'm seeing, communities being formed, even on online platforms, especially because, we're not able to really get out there right now. But this is the time for it because, we've never had the technology that we do today, when Saturn was in Aquarius in the past, so it's like, this is the time for us to use these technological advancements to connect to each other globally, but also even in our own direct community, because I also feel like, the fact that we're running out of all these resources, like, toilet paper, and even like the food supply being so limited now, it does seem like a time where we have to kind of like figure out something that will work for us for the future, something that will be more long lasting. Saturn talks about like seeing things through, and Aquarius is the future and advancements for the future. So, this is a good time to figure out, while we're in this shelter period, like what our cause is, so that we can connect to a community that's probably already organized, or maybe even forming a community that's needed to help the future, like our future generations, and so that we don't come into a time like this again where we're all kind of in this survival mode.
I completely agree. Definitely Saturn in the sign of Aquarius is a very, very interesting energy. And not to mention that actually this year, Saturn is also going to be squaring Uranus in the sign of Taurus. But what's interesting about Saturn and this Uranian Aquarian energy is that they are completely different. So if we talk about Saturn, which is all about climbing the mountain very, very slowly, Uranus is all about shooting like a rocket. Mm-hmm. Saturn is about sticking to what works. And Aquarius energy is being very innovative. You know, so I believe it's going to take a little bit of a time for the two of them to get used to each other, even though Saturn is a very, you know, Saturn is in a domicile position in the sign of Aquarius. Still, it's going to take a little bit of a time. And maybe this year is going to be still rocky and unusual to a certain extent. Maybe Saturn is going to be still focusing a lot on the results. But then from 2021, I believe that the focus is going to go towards the society and the change. Maybe Saturn is going to realize from next year onwards that it's not about playing safe. We can live on the edges as well a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, Saturn rules anything which is like tested and time-tested method. But Aquarius is very idealistic, very eccentric, unique, individuated. So, and even unpredictable as well. So it's very, very difficult to make some, you know, prediction of what Saturn in Aquarius might bring. But, you know, if we go down on the memory lane, we can actually we might be able to see some trends. Did you look at what Saturn in Aquarius caused in the last one century?
I know that the civil rights movement was happening around the time that Saturn was in Aquarius. That, you know, it lasted longer than that period because Saturn in Aquarius is only, you know, there for about 2 to 3 years. But you know, what I find is that, you know, like, you know, there's some injustices that happen, and, you know, the people kind of come together and end up protesting against you know, the government or what's going on, or the restrictions and the rules and the regulations that are being put on top of us, you know. So yeah, I find that it is like a kind of like a weird situation to get into, because, you know, we're being supported, but then also there's some things that we have to fight against, and it's an uncomfortable feeling, because Saturn wants overall it wants stability, you know, but Aquarius just sees the future and it says like, no, I'm going to be the rebel here, you know, like I don't really you know, I don't connect to this way of being, and I don't, you know, agree with this way of being anymore, you know. And, you know, Aquarius really just wants to get to the future ways of being, and Saturn is like, no, like, wait, we have this structure here though, you know. So I do feel like yeah, within this year, you know, Saturn is still kind of playing around. It's not fully getting into Aquarius until next year, because it's going to be going retrograde back into Capricorn. So I feel like we're just getting a taste of it. But what I do find interesting too is that Mars is going to be conjuncting Saturn at a 0 degree, you know, and that's a very important degree, because it's kind of like putting us in a situation collectively where, like, we've never felt this before, but, you know, like, we have to do something about it, but we just don't know how to go about it, because Mars is like this passion, this drive, and this energy and this fuel. But at 0 degrees, it's kind of like, you know, a baby, you know, it doesn't really know how to perform, how to, you know, just take that action, you know. So it's the time where it's kind of unsettling, you know. Still, this year is going to be really unsettling. And then next year, I think that, yeah, we're going to be put to action with that first Saturn and Uranus square. You know, we're going to actually kind of have to be forced to make some kind of moves.
Yeah, but, you know, Uranus in Taurus square usually talks about reluctance. So I'm guessing people are going to be reluctant for that change, but probably it's going to get for the better. Yes, and I agree with you. Mars joining Saturn. To be honest, when I had a look at the coronavirus situation a week ago or so, yeah, basically I thought that the borders are going to be kind of closed down around the 22nd, and maybe it's going to get reinforced around the 30th of March when Mars joins Saturn. And I believe that conjunction is going to be lasting at least for 6 weeks. That's why I reckon once Mars leaves the sign of Aquarius, which is going to happen around the 13th of May, I think that's the time when the borders might start opening up again between countries. And maybe this Saturn in Aquarius also bring us the possibility of becoming like one as a world. And the reason why I think that is because if we go back on the memory lane, actually the last time when Saturn was in the sign of Aquarius, that was between 1991 to 1994. That was exactly the time when the EU got founded as well, the European Union. Well, that happened somewhere around 1993, so just before Saturn went out of the sign of Aquarius. But I'm guessing all the agreements and, you know, started somewhere around the time when Saturn entered the sign of Aquarius. Now, I am very, very curious to see what's going to happen to the EU, because obviously they are having their Saturn return. So I'm guessing the EU is going to be restructuring their system. And also, let's not forget that England made the decision to leave the EU. So I wouldn't be shocked if some other countries would follow. But we will see. But maybe on a world scale, there is going to be another EU, and therefore it's going to be easier for you to travel to Hungary or for me to travel to, you know, Colorado and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's going to get a little bit cheaper as well. Aquarius, which is humanitarian sign, right? So it's more affordable for everyone. So that was one of the main huge events which happened when Saturn entered the sign of Aquarius. And then let's not forget, yeah, you did mention the civil rights, which is very, very interesting because that was around the 1960s. And wow, civil rights, that's again Aquarius energy.
Mm-hmm.
I am actually expecting some activists to appear on the front line, to be honest, especially somewhere around September, October time when Mars is going to be squaring Saturn.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be shocked about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, like, you're talking about, like, dissolving the restriction on the borders, and I think that it's also like dissolving the restrictions on humanity itself too. I think that we're going towards the period, and we are in that transition of the Aquarian age. So I think we're going towards that period of seeing that, just because we're a different color, different race, different age, different gender, it doesn't really mean anything, And I feel like we've been kind of programmed to see everything as separate, like you're separate from me, and in this time is really a good time to really be meditating and focusing on oneness, Let's not focus on the fear that that all this is bringing on. Let's focus on the love and what we can create with the love that we have, because at the end of the day, it's like, if we can come together now, we can come together, we can connect online now, we can, connect to people from different countries and understand different point of views. And, just, it's about gathering all this knowledge and information, which is Aquarius.
Yeah.
And restructuring with that knowledge that we're receiving, so I do feel like, yeah, we will be seeing activists, we're going to be seeing protests, we're going to be seeing people really wanting to be heard, and people wanting to change the way a lot of the things that have been going on for so long, restructuring a lot of that so that we can be, kind of have a forward movement and be able to, like, you know, kind of go uphill, like Saturn likes to go uphill, you know, like, and continue without, you know, reaching blockages like this from time to time, because it really is a pattern, you know. But now it's that time where we can actually connect with one another and become, you know, even a global connection, you know, where we can, you know, talk to, I mean, it's just interesting how, like, even the president is on Twitter now, you know, so it's like we can talk to, you know, the president, you know, through on an online platform. And I was also even thinking, like, you know, we can also even use this energy to connect to even celebrities, because Aquarius and Leo, you know, they're on the same axis. So because we have these online platforms, you can connect with people that are, you know, higher up in authority, or even celebrities, to kind of connect and build the, you know, build this bigger community. Yeah.
I completely agree with you. You know, even back to the memory lane a little bit. Well, Saturn in Aquarius was the birth of internet, and as well as the end of URSS, which was also something huge because it was founded somewhere in 1920s. You know, so definitely this Saturn in Aquarius is really much talking about restructuring the governmental energies. Surely, I can actually imagine having, instead of having, for instance, somehow a prime minister, you know, there is going to be more of a, or the work of the parliament are going to be changing somehow. It's not going to be that complex and so forth. But somehow I'm feeling that the hierarchy level is definitely going to be changing in the next 20 years. How do you think that the how do you think the innovation part of Aquarius gonna appear? Such as, you know, for instance, if we go back to 1992, actually the compact disc outsold the cassette tapes the very first time. How do you think it's gonna appear in the technological side of Aquarius?
Well, I mean, you know, there's been so many innovations, you know, like there's been, you know, now we don't, you know, no one really uses a CD-ROM anymore, you know, we're pretty much, you know, everything is electronic. I see like more so like changes with the money system and electronic and things like that. Like, you know, we have so many money apps now and money lending apps, and, you know, and I think that's like that Taurus Uranus energy that's happening. So restructuring that, I feel like there's going to be a change in the money system. And I also feel like even to the food system, I feel like, you know, we're going to innovate ways where we can do like, you know, more farming locally, so that we can have more, you know, at our, you know, within reach, you know, without having to go to these bigger supermarkets, you know. I feel like things probably will get scaled down just a little bit so that it can work a little better for us, you know. But as far as like technological advances, I mean, I feel like slowly we're going to be seeing like, especially when Uranus is like gets closer to Gemini, like a big change when it comes to like AI and our phones, and just the things that we'll be able to do with our phones. You know, you kind of hear like those theories about like, you know, us being one with the phone and it literally like being connected to our brain waves. But honestly, like, you know, that's a few years coming up, but I can see that with Gemini ruling the thought process, it is kind of like, you know, I kind of get a little worried about that, you know, like I almost want to downgrade my phone a little bit and go back to like the older phones.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think? How do you feel? Like, what do you think you're going to see?
Interesting that you mentioned, because when Saturn was in the sign of Aquarius last, between 1991 to 1994, we definitely saw plenty of outstanding technological advances, such as the first GMS telephone call, you know, the birth of the worldwide web project, which was in 1991 August, obviously that made internet available for unrestricted commercial use. And also it was the introduction of the web browsers as well. So I feel like I agree with you. By the time Uranus is going to be jumping into the sign of Gemini, actually I can imagine the cars are going to be driving instead of you, talking to you. I feel like this new age is going to bring us a technological advancement of robots doing the job, unfortunately. And now I don't know whether you've heard it or not, but actually there are big companies out there testing already. What if robots worked in kitchens?
Mm.
And I'm talking about big food chains.
Mm.
Because that's one of the ways how they want to cut the cost of labor.
Yep.
And I'm hoping that Saturn is somehow not going to allow this.
Yeah.
You know, at least not in the next 2.5, 3 years. Because we lose that humanitarian side of Aquarius. Who wants to talk to a robot? You know, it's just a little bit of a weird feeling, I think.
Honestly, like that plays so much on our psychological levels as well, you know, because it's like, if we feel like we're no longer needed, and then also if we're being separated from human contact, like imagine what that does on our psyche, you know, and really can get us into a depressed mood and really cause us to, you know, kind of put our chakras out of balance. You know, I really do, like you said, hope that Saturn restricts this, you know, and I think that comes with, you know, humanity coming together too and fighting back and saying, no, like we want to live, we want to work, you know, we want to make things work for ourselves. And so, yeah, that is, that's a scary thought. And, but the car thing, I could definitely see too, because Gemini rules automobiles. So I could definitely see us, you know, being able to turn on the car with our voice recognition or something like that. But yeah, and even like with this this money that they're handing to us, because that's something that was passed here in the States, and I think in like England too. I just feel like it puts us in a place of dependency, you know, and I really feel like and hope that this Saturn in Aquarius with this, you know, really brings up protesting and people and activism and people fighting back so that we can create our own and be sustainable within ourselves and our own communities, you know, because it just kind of feels like, okay, if we end up depending on these handouts and things like that, and then we don't, it's like we're going to lose our will to fight, you know, and I don't see that going in the best direction if we're going to be relying on the government to help us out. Like, I feel like the power can be brought back into our hands with this, you know? So I really hope that is the outcome of Saturn and Aquarius.
You know, I agree with you. As we said, Aquarius symbolizes the collective, the communities we belong to, the one to many connections, basically, we relate to. And when Saturn enters the sign of Aquarius, I think people are going to start realizing that we need each other. And that's the whole idea here. You know, it's talking about the personal path, which could become flagrantly, you know, linked somehow to the collective, I think more than ever. And we can already see signs. You know what I'm really hoping? That, let's say, Leslie is going to tell me, I made some bread. Do you have some cucumbers? Can we swap?
Yes.
And there is going to be like this trading market, which is going to pick up. And actually, I'm seeing more and more Facebook groups such like this. So, for instance, I've got homemade breads. Do you want to swap it for something else?
Yep.
I can make homemade bread for you. Can you make me, or can you give me some homemade soap bars, for instance? So I think the trading might start picking up again a little bit between people, because collectively, maybe the outcome of this coronavirus is that people are going to be more health conscious as well, especially from that Taurus, Uranus energy, what we bring into it as well. What do you think about that? Do you think it's possible we can do that?
I hope it's possible that we can get back to like a bartering, you know, type of system, you know, and that's why, like, I really hope that people, you know, kind of step away from that fear of the social distancing so that we can come to this trading point, you know, because, you know, again, like some people are still kind of confused and feel like this is the right thing. Like I should be so far away from this person and, you know, like don't touch anything and, you know, like, and don't, and it kind of causes like fear within like our neighbors, you know? So I kind of tell everyone that around me, like, just, you know, focus on the love and focus on the healing and focus on your individual path and what you can do to make a change. And bartering, I mean, we can all get together and trade our skills. That's a beautiful a thing. And I've always, you know, wished on that, you know? So I really hope that that is what this comes to, you know, is a bartering system so that we can, you know, kind of, you know, survive, you know, with each other instead of, you know, feeling like we're against each other and beating each other up for toilet paper, you know, like it's not, it should not be what's going on, you know? So I really feel like, and hope that, you know, it's a time for us really to come together and restructure within ourselves, because whatever structure is happening around us and regulations happening around us, it's just not fair, you know? And I really hope that this is the awakening, like that Uranus, Aquarian, you know, awakening, you know? I always think about Aquarius and Uranus energy, and I think about like Albert Einstein's hair, like him and his hair, you know? So I really hope that people get that electric shock of awareness. And I also feel like with this, a lot of time on people's hands, people can do the research and people can really see, like, you know, the eye-opening events that's been happening throughout history and how we've come to this place now and what we can do now to change it going forward, you know, so that we don't have to be, you know, like put into this cycle again every time. Like we can move upwards from here.
Yeah. And how do you see the future of astrology? Because we should not forget that Aquarius does rule astrology.
I feel like there's going to be a lot of restructuring with that as well, and people taking it more serious, you know? I feel like back in the 90s, let's say, you know, when I first started getting into astrology, you know, we had like those horoscopes in the newspapers. And I'm a Gemini, so every time I would read my horoscope, it would say, you're going to go to the mall today and meet a friend, you know? And it was pretty funny because I meet friends everywhere I go, you know, but it just wasn't accurate enough. So I feel like it left a distaste in a lot of people's mouth where they felt like it wasn't accurate, like it wasn't truth, there was no truth behind it. But now more and more, because we have these online platforms, and we have so many teachers too on YouTube, beautiful, teaching just, you know, what they know and their fortes. You know, I love that astrology has different branches. And I feel like people are going to understand it more. They're going to be willing to learn it and maybe even build like little small communities to really just because I also feel like people should know astrology like the weather. You know, I really feel like people should really be aware of like their Mars transits and even their Saturn transits and what's going on within their personal chart, so that we can all, you know, just kind of be less judgmental, be more aware of this conscious evolution that we're all going through, and connect more, you know? So I do feel like, yeah, Saturn and Aquarius can help us connect more through astrology, because then we have less of a subjective view and more of an objective view on self and everyone around us, that they have their own, you know, that's what it's helped me with, is everyone has their own path, you know, they have their own upbringing, and you know, how can I help them, you know, bring out the best values, you know, from them too, and teach them, you know, maybe this is a projection, or maybe this is just an internal struggle that you're having and it's not really as big as you think it is, you know? So yeah, I feel like, you know, Saturn and Aquarius could definitely bring on therapy too, you know, through astrology, and people would just become to believe in it more.
I've got a little bit of a weird theory about this, because I believe that to a certain extent, the governments are going to try to restrict astrology. I believe they're going to come up with some regulation that you can only post, let's say, astrological videos if you've got some documentation of studies and so forth. But on the flip side, I can also imagine that they're going to be teaching it at universities, and it's going to be something accepted in many countries. And there are not many countries, actually. Do you know any country where it's what's the word in English? I don't even remember. Where it's accepted as a degree, let's say?
I don't know of any, you know, and even like back then, I was actually, you know, a few years ago, I was looking for schools that had a degree program for astrology. And yeah, I feel like, yeah, it could definitely bring on some restrictions. I mean, you can kind of feel it already, you know, kind of YouTube, like said that they're now kind of restricting videos, and they're using a robot to do it. So it's not even a person that's actually, you know, so there's going to be, you know, just for little words that we're using, they could just shut everything down, you know? So you can already feel the pressure of that type of regulation that's happening. But I also feel like, because this is the age of Aquarius and information and awareness, like I hope that people have that fight back, that they're able to push back, because we're being kind of like, you know, suppressed, and we're just trying to learn and expand our minds, you know? So but it would be such a wonderful, you know, thing to see it in actual, you know, universities and being taught, because it is a science. And even learning with you, I just, you know, my math is getting better, you know, just it's just the perspectives, you know, that we can, you know, gain from astrology is wonderful. It's a wonderful tool. So it would be great to see it in a university for sure.
I am quite certain, actually, that this is going to happen in the next, let's say, 5 years. They're going to put some restrictions on it. I've already seen it, for instance, happen in my country. So what they do in Hungary at the moment is, actually, they took the power away from psychologists, and basically they can't do anything anymore. If you have got any cases, you need to go to a psychiatrist. But the question is, what about those people who just want a little bit of a self-development? You know, not having an issue which physically manifests as well. You know, so it's a little bit of a tricky question. I do understand where this legislation came from, because probably they want to stop people of giving like bad advice and so forth, and it can actually cause more harm than gain, right?
Right.
So definitely, probably, you know, it's not necessarily a bad thing. But I'm just afraid of, you know, people losing the possibility of talking to someone freely they want to, because of some self-development projects. Yeah, we'll see. But I would love to see a university or two, or at least one every single country, where they teach it, because I think it can really, you know, expand on your vision and on your mind to see things a lot more clear. And actually, you might be able to use the positive side of planets to create a better life for yourself. And I think that's a job of an astrologer anyway. Not necessarily telling you that you're going to get shot, you know, in the middle of the street in 2021 June, because I think that's just crazy. And I know there are people out there who so much into prediction that, you know, I just don't agree with that at all. What else did you discover in regards to, or what else do you have to add in regards to Saturn in Aquarius?
Well, it's interesting because Saturn will be reaching conjunction with Jupiter, you know, so, you know, that can definitely play in our, you know, our wealth and what's happening and what we're receiving, you know, as far as like monetarily wise. Jupiter is also philosophy. So maybe even like, you know, when they become conjunct, there will be like a realization of what's happening on a bigger scale, you know. Jupiter rules, you know, taxes and foreign lands, you know, too. So we can see a lot of restructuring and changes, you know, like within, you know, each one of our lands pretty much, you know. And what else? Let's see.
You mentioned the restructure of money. Do you think that we can see a universal money type of energy in the next 20 years?
Yeah, and I think that's why there's like a push for everything to become electronic, monetarily wise, so that we can have like a one world currency, you know. And yeah, I could definitely see that happening for sure.
It would be interesting to see whether, you know, it works out. Surely, I'm guessing it wouldn't be in the next 2-3 years,
right?
Because Saturn has got, you know, this tendency of popping the balloon if he doesn't like something. And Saturn has got the tendency to say, not yet, you have to earn it. Mm-hmm. So it can cause some type of delays in that department, but I can see that coming. I can see that coming. Yeah, I can definitely.
I feel like, yeah, there has to be like a change in the infrastructure of everywhere first. So that's going to take some time, you know, before we can get there. But I can see that happening. And it will be really interesting to see, you know, how we can, you know, like, you know, go to a different country and be able to use like our, whatever we have at that time, you know, our debit card or our phones and tap the, you know, like it will make things a lot easier. But it definitely will make a huge shift in like the value system, you know, and what we, you know, as far as like gold, you know, like will gold hold the same value at that point? You know, we really don't, I don't know what will happen, you know. It's interesting to see how everything will unfold.
Yeah, surely. Well, Saturn is has already entered the sign of Aquarius, as we said, on the 22nd of March. And then somewhere in the middle of May, he is going to turn stationary, and then eventually it's going to crawl back to the sign of Capricorn. So by the 2nd of July, he is back to Capricorn, and then eventually he is going to leave the sign of Capricorn at the end of, well, somewhere at the end of December. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to start this very new Aquarian energy. Yes. Do you have anything else to add?
No, I don't have anything else to add. Not for this video, but we can always get back at it again.
Yes, surely. Well, thank you very much for joining me. It was just a little bit of a shorter video to see what Saturn in the sign of Aquarius itself could manifest as. Let's hope for the best. Let's hope that this is all gonna be about people holding hands, no matter what, getting together as a group, and then basically changing everything for the better.
Yes. Changing it for it to work for us, you know, instead of working for the government.
Exactly. And any other hierarchy
right.
energy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Thank you,
Thank
Victor.
you very much, Leslie. I hope everyone enjoyed our little presentation.
Same.
And hope to see you soon again.
We'll see you later for class.
Yes, see you later on the lesson.
All right. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everyone. Bye-bye.